Oh shit. Bet. All right. Welcome to the Footy Philosophy Podcast. This is the first episode, so bear with us. But this is sort of our weekly roundup, Monday through Friday. It's just some things we thought were interesting heading into the weekend. Um, it seems as if the biggest storyline potentially this week is Santos getting relegated from the first tier of Brazilian football. It's the first time in over 100 years that they're going to be playing in the second tier, obviously causing some massive outrage. I'm not sure if you saw the photos, but there were some fires. There were some fires in the town, and
I'm
yeah,
not surprised knowing how Brazilian football is, how
yeah,
seriously they take it.
for sure. It's quite a big deal too. Obviously, the stars that have come out of there: Pele, Neymar, Rodrigo. Um, I'm not gonna lie. I don't know like a whole lot about the squad, but when you think Brazilian, Premier Division, you think Santos, and for them to be going down, it's like that's a big deal. It's as if, someone like Manchester United or Arsenal were to go down.
Yeah,
Quite,
and just to touch on it, I'm guessing the Santos team in the Serie A isn't really all that good, just based on what I've seen. And I haven't watched any Santos games, but I have actually watched some Palmeiras games, which I'm sure you know why, but I will just mention just because of Endrick and my Real Madrid fandom. I've been following them recently in their title push. Um, to be honest, I don't check the Brazilian standings very much, but this topic is very permanent in just world football because it's such a historic club with so many historic players, like you already mentioned, and I'm sure there's more. With you and I both, we definitely focus mostly on European football. So,
right? Yeah,
especially with the way the world has gone now and the football world that is, where like, we have hyper focused on European football, all the best players, European football. And all that being said, just it's really sad. In 100 years, I'm not surprised they've been in the first division for that long. Um, but I guess it goes. The Brazilian Serie A is a fantastic league.
hmm,
I've known this for a long time. It's something that I wish I watched more. But I don't even know what channel they're on.
yeah,
Um, and I watch enough football as it is. The wife gets a little mad, like, oh, you're watching another game. So, because I need to add more more games into my rotation. But, all that being said, just it's really disappointing. From just someone that loves the game. It's sad to see. You know, no
sure.
matter how much I don't really like a certain team, like a Barcelona per se, I would never want to see them get relegated. Like even like a Man City with everything they have going on, it wouldn't be good for football, in my opinion, and
Yeah,
this is bad for football.
yeah,
And I also just want to bring up something else that went on in the Brazilian Serie A, is just the fact that I'm gonna botch this name, but Botafoga. I don't know if you know what's been going on there, but they were in first like a month ago, and they've been on a terrible run of form and lost the league. And actually ended
yeah.
up
No,
in fifth place. Um, I don't know what their run of form has been, but it's been really bad. I'll tell you. Loss, draw, 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 loss, loss, loss,
wow.
loss, draw. Yeah, that's their last. What is that? 10 games?
Yeah, so they
I
haven't
mean,
won.
that's really bad.
They haven't won since October, and they've only picked up, you know, what is that, 6 points since then. That is terrible. That's something that, touching on that, something that the top five leagues in Europe specifically lack is like a team to just bottle the league that hard. That's fascinating. And it does make you want to pay attention to some other leagues. Um the other thing about Santos is you're so right. It is bad for football. It's bad for the product, if you will, if you want to go there. But yeah, I thought that was really fascinating. It seems like that's something there that transcends even just performance and anything along those lines. That's actually like a huge cultural impact type of thing. Yeah,
And, I just they only lost by 1 point, man. Like they got sent down. I mean, granted, their goal differential, they would have get sent down anyway if they like had one more point. But like, if one of those draws turns into a win, if one of those two of those losses turn into draws, I don't really know. Oh man, they lost this game in the 95th minute, or I don't know their games that well, but um, yeah, it's just sad and kind of crazy how one, game can make or break the season.
For sure.
And I do just want to add, guess who the striker is for Botafogo?
Guess without looking.
Yeah, he played for the Spanish national team, but he's actually from Brazil.
Diego Costa.
Yep.
Oh shoot.
He had 10 goals this season in 13 games. Oh no, that's appearances. Sorry. That was 10 sub appearances in 13. He only had 3 goals this year. Okay. So he doesn't even play that much.
Yeah,
But still, I mean, their striker had 17 goals in 36 appearances. So, um,
that is fascinating.
very. And I do want to say shout out to Endrick and Palmeiras for, winning the league. They were actually, I don't know if you know, but the game they played Botafogo was up 3-0, and then
Like,
Palmeiras came back on the back of Endrick, who has actually been a big reason why they won the title this year. He's someone that actually struggled to get into the lineup at the beginning of the year, and really just this past month or so has been in amazing form, and actually has outscored every Brazilian youngster except for Neymar.
oh wow.
So yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's
Neymar has stayed there for a number of years. So
right. Yeah, what's this? 11 goals, 31 appearances, but he's hardly started. That's a solid. Speaking of goals or lack thereof, maybe United Chelsea was yesterday. there is a lot to talk about with this. You know, I'm watching this game and it feels more like something we'd play in the backyard or like something you'd find in a on a bad high school pitch, something along those lines. The Chelsea were so sloppy in possession. They needed so much work, and the only reason that they were, alive in this game is because of United's just they had no midfield presence whatsoever. And I thought it was hilarious. You wrote down Amrabat Fugazi footballer because
yeah, it's just, he's one of those guys that was wanted by so many teams based on, a 7 game World Cup. And I liked him, but I'm not going to be like, yo, we need this guy from a 7 game World Cup. And, it's just, it's not that I'm saying he is, but it's more so my question because, like, granted, actually, I'm going to go on a limb here and say, like, United is never the place to judge a footballer. Okay. Like, ever. Especially right now under Ten Hag. Maybe with Mourinho and, Solskjaer because, he just had the longevity. So, no, but right now, Amrabat's only been there for a couple games and he's only played a couple games. And, I do think the question needs to be asked. And like you said, they lack midfield right now. But the thing is that they've always lacked midfield structure.
Mhm,
Bruno Fernandez unbalances that team
mhm.
really badly. And this is beyond the Chelsea. I'm happy they won. Good for them. It was a basketball game though, man.
It
Just
was.
transition back, no midfield, transition the other way, no midfield, transition the other way. Which also I think we need to beg the question about Chelsea's midfield. And no shots at Conor Gallagher, but he's not that guy, and he's been their best midfielder. They spent like 100 plus on Caicedo. I think it was like 140. No one was even touching that. They should have let him stay at Brighton. And then Enzo, they spent like 120 on. And also, I think Enzo, we need to start asking questions about Enzo because the advanced metrics are there, but he's not he's not impacting the game. And actually, when you look at the advanced metrics, there's no one in the world like Tony Cruz, right? There's no one in the world like Luka Modric. But there are guys that come close. Barella comes close to Luka Modric. Look at advanced metrics. Bernardo Silva comes close to Luka Modric. Look at advanced metrics. Nobody comes close to Tony Cruz except for one person in advanced metrics, and that's Enzo Fernandez. So, something's going on there. And I know it's not Pochettino because the track record is there across teams.
Yeah.
Um,
No, it's definitely a culture thing with them. Towards the end of the game, Chelsea are well, United started sitting back as they took the lead from Scott McTominay's brace, which I'll talk about in a second. But
yeah, we can get
Chelsea,
there.
yeah, Chelsea are recycling possession, and there's a bad pass back into the back line, and Disasi and Thiago Silva almost run into each other trying to get the ball, and Silva yells at him. I thought that was really interesting and very indicative of just what's going on there right now. I don't know, no disrespect to Thiago Silva, but if the guy's almost 40 years old and he's like the guy,
Your guy. Yeah,
that's a
problematic.
bad thing. It's a bad thing.
Well,
Um,
and I want to say that just I don't mean to cut in, but Diassi is not an outside back. Okay,
mhm,
like he's not. I
yeah,
don't care about oh, we're playing our structure's fine with it, blah blah blah. He's not.
yeah. No, that is something that Pochettino, I love him as a former Spurs manager. I love him, but there are some questionable decisions there. He's got Levi Colwill playing left back and Cucurella playing right back, which that's fine, I guess. But Levi Colwill is not a left back for me. He is he can play
No,
on
and he
the
keeps
left
moving
side.
these guys around.
Yeah,
And it's hard to find any balance in that back line when you have Puka on the left and you have um Levi Colwell on the left, and then you have uh Diassi playing, sometimes outside back, sometimes in the middle, either play a back three and just get that structure and get everyone in there. If you want those three center backs in there, get a back three, stop playing Cucurella on the right, play him on the left, get Reece James in there and thin out your midfielder, thin out your attack, figure it out. And,
yeah,
I do want to say this Chelsea team, they're transition monsters, man. Like
yeah,
they're really good in transition. And, I hate to say it, but Cole Palmer, not a fan. I don't really care what anyone says. I'm just not a fan. If City is willing to let you go, you're probably not that good at the end of the day. Um, and and everyone, no, but the truth is like everyone's like, oh, like Pep lets guys go. Pep Bernardo Silva has been pushing for a move for 4 freaking years, and Pep hasn't been like, yeah, go to Barcelona. Ferran Torres is like, I want to leave after 6 months. He's like, yeah, have fun, good, cool, go.
yeah,
And if let you leave, there's a reason he lets you leave. Either, he thinks your head's not there, or he's switching systems and he's okay with losing you. They did Kyle Walker wanted to go to Bayern this year, but they did everything to keep him there.
yeah. That's a good point.
So, Cole
Um,
Palmer, not a fan. But Mudryk, he's really good in transition. Raheem Sterling, he's really good in transition. Nico Jackson, really good in transition. But they really lack a nine, and they need someone to finish those chances because they're creating good chances. And I keep seeing that Raheem Sterling to Nico Jackson on goal, and some people are like Nico's got to finish that, and some people are like Raheem's got to pass it earlier or later, and I'm just kind of like, it just looked crap altogether to me.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and Mudryk in general, I'm a big fan of him, especially in transition. He actually reminds me of, I know he's older than Vinicius, but he reminds me of like a younger Vinicius who just really needs to work on his decision making. I don't think he's a 100 mil player, but 50, 75, I would pay that for him. But he right now he can't be the guy to lead the line.
for sure.
And that's kind of what Chelsea have gotten themselves into, unfortunately, in this circumstances. They've spent a bunch of money on a lot of guys, and honestly, I gotta give Poch some credit here. Like he's not really calling out any of his guys and being like, I need more from so and so. He's like, we're
Yeah,
learning, we're getting better. Um, or I expect more from everybody. Like he's not singling anybody out. Nico Jackson is not that guy, at least not yet. I had a bunch of Chelsea fans who were ex-players of mine when I coached, been like, what do you think about Nico Jackson? Because they know I watch all league, and I'm like, especially after preseason, I'm like, he's not that guy. Don't like
yeah,
this is a purple patch, okay? Like,
yeah,
and he's a good player, and he is a good player though. That's the thing. And once you get Nkunku back, things are going to look completely different.
for sure.
Um, Nkunku led the Bundesliga in scoring last year. I'm not saying he's going to do that in the Prem, but he's a good goal scorer. But he can't be your main guy. Even they need they should have spent 200 mil on Osimhen this summer. They shouldn't have went and got Raheem Sterling or Cole Palmer. You know, they've already spent all this money, and I don't know, you might disagree. I think Chelsea is actually a pretty solid team on paper. They're not
Agree.
world class, but they create chances. They have a good coach. They have good center backs. They have good outside backs. They have a structure in midfield, whether it's good or not. Um, losing Kovacic hurt, but it's not the end of the world. But they go get the DM, which you should have paid for Rice. Come on, like if
Yeah,
Rice, if you offer the same price for Declan Rice as Arsenal, and you lose that battle, fine. But they weren't even in the race. And maybe that's because Declan Rice said, look, I only want Arsenal. But,
yeah,
the structure's there. They just need a nine. They should have spent the money on Osimhen this summer. He was worth it. And he still hasn't re-signed at Napoli because of, I don't know if you know about the problems that have been going on there, but there's a
yeah,
lot of problems going on there.
yeah,
Um, you know, the owners like, I don't want him going to AFCON. I don't, and like I think that's a fair opinion, but you just can't say it. Like we all think it, but you just can't say it.
right.
And he hasn't renewed yet, and so he'll be cheaper this summer. Maybe they go nab him in January if he's mad with Rudy Garcia. But I doubt Napoli really want to let him go. I do see him resigning, but I see him resigning with a release clause of like maybe 125, 150. And he is worth that though.
Yeah. No, I'd love him on my team. Talking about goal scoring, I want to talk about Scott McTominay because this guy is someone like I remember back in the day when you know, he was younger and I was playing FIFA. He was a striker. He was a striker. And ever since then he's just moved further, further back in the spine of the team, even playing center back sometimes. But he scores a brace yesterday. Obviously, it's kind of like a meme that he scores for Scotland a lot, but like this guy is a goal scorer. I don't know if he's, a box to box midfielder or even a 10, a 10 more of a shadow striker type, but the only thing that I was thinking of was if United can find a way to polish their midfield, whether it's having, Amrabat and Casemiro when he's healthy, but who knows if Ten
Who knows
Hag's
what's going on with Casemiro and Varane anyway?
yeah, exactly. But I'm just talking about like, two sixes or deep lying playmakers that can, allow McTominay to bomb forward. That would be interesting. But you
He
know,
won't drop his wingers though. The problem is, here's the issue with United structure. Bruno, he defends, but he doesn't want to. Rashford ain't defending.
yeah,
Your striker ain't defending. I'm sorry, you can't defend with seven outfield players and expect to win at the end of the day. And you know who McTominay actually reminds me of? Ex-United player. Followed Mourinho around a couple places. You know what I'm talking about?
Mkhitaryan.
No. Actually, Mourinho can't stand Mkhitaryan. No, but like big dude, Mourinho would throw him on late and just be
Oh,
like, go
Fellaini.
get in the box. Yes, exactly. Like this dude, he doesn't really have like a poacher like mentality, but like, man, he gets in the dirty areas, bro, and he wins headers. And honestly, like, I'm I don't think Scott McTominay is like a good footballer, but I don't necessarily think he's a bad one either, though. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, I'm very okay with Scott McTominay getting minutes at United. I just don't think he should be starting at United, but he's in great goal scoring form right now. And
yeah,
when guys are having their purple patch, man, you got to play them. Just like why
yeah.
Garnacho's starting. And what are your thoughts on Garnacho in
Mm.
this game and as a player? I thought he was one of the best players on the pitch from what I saw from the game.
He was definitely coming up in the right areas, which you love to see from a winger. Threatening the goal. Um, as a generally as a player, I like him, and he's so young, so who knows where he can go. Um, there are some times where I think he plays a little bit of hero ball, where he tries to take the game for himself, which is you like that to some extent, and his idol's Ronaldo, so of course he wants to try and win the game. But there are some moments where like, okay, maybe you need to square the ball when you're on the edge of the box and let someone else have a shot. Um, but yeah, he was one of the best players for them yesterday. Uh, I just think sort of like what you're saying about McTominay right now, Garnacho should be starting, games against teams lower down the table and some cup ties, not a big game against Chelsea. That's just my opinion. United should
I think
have,
that's fair. I think that's a fair assessment too. Like let the kid grow into it. Don't just throw him into the deep end.
yeah,
But I guess part of the issue is that Garnacho is hot right now and Rashford's not. So you got to ride the hot hand. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, if Garnacho's right now making good decisions and being that guy, you got to ride with him. Anthony also started on the right wing, which United have spent a lot of money on him. Um,
yeah,
I'm not a huge fan. Maybe if he costs like, I think he's like a 30, 35 mil, maybe $50 million footballer in
yeah,
today's game. I think they spent 75, so way above that. And I think a lot of smart people would probably agree with that assessment. I would pay at most 35 for him. Because you're putting a lot of pressure on a guy that's not really going to get goals.
yeah, for
And you
sure.
could have just went and got Rafinha for the same price, who ended up at Barcelona and is a much better footballer. Um, but Ten Hag wanted Anthony. The club backed him. What are your thoughts on either Anthony in general or like his impact on United's game? Because it wasn't United's best 11. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
for sure.
Like Anthony's not in United's best 11, in my opinion.
Yeah, probably not. The thing about Anthony is he reminds me a lot of Kulusevski. They only really have one thing in their bag, and it's to cut in on the left. And sure, that's dangerous, but with the way the Premier League is right now, you need a winger that's going to keep you on your toes. You need a winger that's unpredictable, that can go to the byline or cut inside. You don't want them to be a cul-de-sac, and that's sort of what Anthony is. Um, and him coming into the half space does allow for Dallo to come forward, who had a really good game yesterday. He's a weird case, Diego
He
Dallo.
is. Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
because
good, but he's not at the same time sometimes.
yeah, I think he has a good football IQ. It's just the technique isn't there sometimes.
Good way to put it.
Yeah, but
Plus, he
yeah,
plays on both flanks, can't get really much consistency because he keeps getting moved around. Um, but yeah, any other thoughts that you have from the United Chelsea game?
I regretted watching that instead of Aston Villa City.
Yeah, and we can use that to transition to Aston Villa City. I mean, what a game that was, really.
Yeah,
Um,
I wish I watched it, man.
I missed it as well. I did watch it in 2x.
Yeah,
So I did actually like see some things, and I need to watch Via a lot more, like when I don't know what the outcome is, especially at Via Park. Um, they got out XG'd, and Man City didn't produce. They produced 0 XG after the 11th minute.
it's crazy.
And I just want to say that, like, honestly, this was super disrespectful by Pep. That lineup he put out was super disrespectful.
I agree.
He plays Luton on the weekend. Luton, I believe, at home. At
Yeah,
home. It's not like he's Luton away. I
yeah.
believe it's Luton at home. I can check that. I'm not really sure if but either way, they're playing Luton. Like do the math on that one. It doesn't make any sense. You can rotate against Luton. Why is Rico Lewis starting?
Especially there, especially there on the start, at least in the starting 11. I didn't get to watch the game, but on the starting 11, he's one of the attacking midfielders. I'd much prefer him at DM, or if you're gonna rotate, maybe play him in Kyle Walker's spot. Um, Walker did play the game though, but
He did, yeah.
nonetheless, like they didn't start a genuine eight. I know Silva was there, but to me, he's not really like an eight.
And he was kind of on the wing a little bit more. He's kind of
Yeah,
become like a wing player for them ever since
yeah.
like 2 years ago.
So, they started five center backs. You're totally right. The lineup was disrespectful, and Emery had the perfect counter to that. It was like a 4-4-1-1 or something like that, maybe a 4-1-4-1.
Yeah, it's his go-to has always been a 4-4-2. Like
Yeah.
everywhere he's been, it's always been a 4-4-2. So
Yeah.
You're always going to have those two lines of four, which are always tough to break. And, Emery's had about a year and a half to work with these guys. And, you know, Villa might have lost 5-1 on match day one, but I don't think that was a good indicator of where they actually were. And I had kind of been like, I went on record and said that I didn't think Newcastle was very good multiple times. And, I do think Villa is actually a better team than Newcastle.
Oh, I
Um,
mean, totally right now, for sure. Even on paper, I think I can agree with that. Yeah, Musa Diaby's class. I don't did he even start yesterday?
no,
No? Well, there you
they
go.
went with Leon Bailey up top with I forget who his strike partner was now. James McGinn was in. Cause I remember looking at their lineup and I'm like, in Emery with Emery, right? It's not like conventional 4-2 4-4-2 though. Like he's got Tielemans there. It kind of like morphs every once in a while in
Yeah,
possession, and that's different from Emery because Emery was never like that. Like in La Liga, because I've I've seen so much Emery in my life.
yeah.
Sometimes he would start like two right backs, which he actually did against City, by the way. And I believe doesn't Kamara usually play right back? Isn't he like
Uh,
usually a right back?
nah, he's normally DM.
Really? I had heard someone tell me that he is usually a right back, so that's what I thought. But he had played two right backs multiple times
Yeah, fair.
um for Villarreal. And uh, to be honest, this Emery project is it's it's good, man.
It is.
And but like nobody should be surprised. Like let's be honest, nobody should be surprised. Douglas Luiz is really good. He's that guy. They're tough at home. Um, and even more than that, just this is a guy who beat Bayern, I believe, after they won the UCL, like the year after in what the quarterfinals. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
so this is a guy who oh, okay, Harris played center back in his career. That's what it was. Sorry, I had to look it up.
You're good.
But this is a guy who, he's not built for the big clubs like Arsenal, PSG, right? He's built for the Sevillas where he won a three-peat of Europa Leagues. He's built for the Villarreals where he won a Europa League. The Aston Villa is the perfect level for him because he's not going to be expected to play expansive football,
Yeah,
but he can get guys in there. He can play a little counterattack. He can play with two very strong lines of four and win games.
yeah. I mean, you look at even just the momentum bar. Via dominated XG. They dominated 22 shots to two, seven on target, two on target. Like sure they were at home, but still, this Man City team just just won the treble. Like so impressive. Um, I don't know. Do you think a big club will try and poach Emery, or is he? I mean,
I think he's very happy there. Let's be honest. I think he's very happy there, and I think he will continue to be happy there. Um, because I just think he knows his comfort zone, and I think he's realized that this is probably a good spot for him because he gets the money to work with guys. And Aston Villa, the more consistent they are, the better they'll be able to stay up. Um, and yeah, I mean, I don't see anyone poaching him. I think they see that he has he played some center back for Marseille. Um, I think they see the the thought process, and I think everyone saw the PSG and
yeah,
everyone saw the Arsenal. And though the Arsenal project, he really was. I thought it was really short-sighted of Arsenal to get rid of him.
yeah,
Um,
probably.
I think everyone kind of recognizes the gaffer that he is, and recognizes that a mid-table club is probably best for him. And if you give him a mid-table club with money, he's going to punch above his weight. Emery has always punched above his weight. That's kind of the problem is that he needs to punch, he needs to be the underdog to
Yeah,
succeed. So I think at least I recognize that. If I can recognize that, I'm sure the people that are way smarter than me are recognizing that. And Aston Villa did a good job picking him up, man. Like they've been they've been near perfect in their recruitment. They've been near perfect in, um, they almost brought in Aliman, who left Barcelona, is now at Atletico, who's did a fantastic job at Barcelona. They're bringing in the right people, and they're just going to keep punching above their weight. I think that's awesome for Aston Villa. It's
Yeah.
awesome for Emery. I'm happy for him, man, because he's a guy that really doesn't receive his flowers enough, in my opinion. Because he's probably a top 10 to 20 manager in the world, and he gets pretty disrespected because of his PSG and Arsenal stints.
Yeah. I mean,
Which
he's
didn't he make a Europa League final with Arsenal? Am I tripping there?
it sounds kind of right.
Didn't
I mean,
Chelsea beat them in that final and he was the coach of the Europa League team that year? That
you're
sounds right to me.
yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be surprising. Emery's the Europa League monster.
God, he's the Europa League Real Madrid.
Yeah, he
It's
is.
just him. It's not Sevilla, it's him. Let me see. I'll be able to find it real quick, I think.
I got you. Well,
2018, 2019, he was at Arsenal. His final game in charge was a 2-1 defeat to Frankfurt in the Europa League. So no, it wasn't. Um, oh wait, no, that was the next season. Let me see. Sorry. Yes, he made the final. He lost. They lost to Chelsea 4-1. Sorry. I guess they fired him at the start of the next season. So it was like last game, 2-1 defeat, Europa League. I was like, oh, they lost. And then it was 29, it was November when he got fired. So that's why.
man. Well, for as good as Villa and Emery are, there are some concerns with City.
Yeah.
Um, I this is sort of becoming a thing with them where, you know, it's December and everyone's saying things are going wrong. But, by March, April, it looks like they're going to win the league. So we'll have to see for this season. But that being said, they're in fourth right now. They're 6 points behind. It feels like it hasn't been this bad before. Um, I don't know. I don't even really know where to begin because obviously they're missing KDB, who in his own right, I think, he might not be
He's
as good as
KDB.
he once was.
You don't even have to say anything else. He's KDB. Like,
Yeah. So, there's that. But in terms of for Holland too, he makes Holland a much better player. They don't have anyone in that team really anymore, with the exception of Rodri, maybe, who's gonna play, like killer balls into Holland. Um, and just totally take the top off.
Grealish could.
He could,
Grealish could, but Pep's kind of ruined him a little bit, which we won't get into great detail there, but maybe another day.
yeah. Um, so I don't know. Their last 5 games they've won once, and they struggled in that Leipzig game. They were 2-0 down, right? Yeah, they were 2-0 down.
They were.
So it hasn't come easy for
Which
them.
goes to show how good they are still, though, at the same day. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
for
you
sure.
go 2-0 down to a very good Leipzig team and you still win 3-2. And did you have any doubt that they were going to lose that game? Because I didn't.
Heading in,
Maybe like 10% of me was like, oh, they might lose today.
yeah,
But if I like, let's say I was in a gambling state where I could put money and I see like Man City down 2-0 at halftime to Leipzig, I'm probably gonna throw some money on Man City to win that game, or like Man City and draw, because they're that good and they're that talented, and that's why I don't think there's cause for concern
yeah,
in a sense. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they should be hitting the panic button like that.
yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but that being said, also I don't see this Man City team. I don't think they win the UCL this year. I don't. I think they probably win the Prem again though. Um, I think they're gonna get knocked out in the UCL by like an Atletico Madrid. I think Atletico Madrid right now would really match up very well against them because they can play that super defensive style. I would say really haven't been that defensive this year, but they can when they need to be. Um, I think that's a good matchup. I think Bayern Munich, if Tuchel doesn't Tuchel it up and just kind of gets simple and is like, look, like we got pace. Let's beat them for pace. Let's City's really comfortable with the ball. And City have become a boring team over the years, and they've actually become more boring somehow. They just kind of like bore you to death. Um, and I'm really interested to see what happens when the new year comes around. So I don't know if you remember last season, this kind of stuff was happening again.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and in the Real Madrid circles, we talk a lot about it doesn't matter what you do in December. It matters what you do in March, April, and May, because you got the quarterfinal, semifinal, and UCL final in those 3 months. And leagues are won and lost in those 3 months.
Yeah.
Um, because if you're tired, it's always like, oh, we're not worried at the beginning of the year because as long as we're good at the end of the year, we can push.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm not hitting the panic button yet for City. I am out on them for this season. I just think they've achieved what they've been trying to achieve for 10 years now, for as long as Pep's been there. They finally won the Champions League.
And it's
They've
like,
got it. What else do they have to play for? You know what I
right.
mean? Like,
Yeah. It's like, this kind of goes into talk about fixture congestion and, all that, which we don't have to get into. But the thing that I was thinking about was, they do win the treble. And it's like, they probably just want to sit there and like hands on their knees and take some heavy breaths for a little while. And yet they have to start a new season like right away.
yeah, we
Um,
finally did it. And you guys got to play
yeah,
Newcastle on the weekend. Have fun,
yeah, exactly. And
at St.
so,
James Park.
yeah, a lot of those players, it's probably not fair to say that they've lost motivation, but something like that where,
I'm sure Pep would agree because he
yeah,
said it on record. They're like, why do you always bring guys in and leave guys, like sell guys and bring new guys in? And he's like, I can't create the hunger inside them. It's really hard to motivate when you've won everything. And
yeah,
they just did that.
yeah,
But I am worried about them. I structurally, I don't think they're very strong. I think people have kind of figured out that box midfield that he wanted. Um, Holland is kind of cold in a sense. I'm gonna say cold because like he's missing chances that when he was with Dortmund he would have never missed.
yeah,
Um, like not sitters, but they're Holland sitters.
right. He missed a few bad ones against Spurs.
Yeah, and he's been missing a few bad ones. And in the Via game, he had those two chances in the 11th minute, which were both very high XG chances that 9 times out of 10 are goals. And they were both on frame. They were just great saves, back to back great saves on the same exact flow of play.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so that being said, I'm not really worried about City. I just don't see them, they're gonna win some trophies this year. I'm just not sure which trophies it's gonna be. Let's
yeah,
just put it that way.
that's fair.
I don't think I want to see them. I don't think I want to see them repeat the Prem. I'd rather I don't like United, but I'd rather that stay with a team that kind of has some history. And I hate people that are like, it's fake history, it's this, it's that. And again, not going to get into it, but at some point you have to create the history, right? Like at some point, like, like what you think in the 50s, people were being like, oh man, that fucking Barcelona team's finally getting good. Fuck, we don't want that. You know what I mean? Like, you think they were saying that about freaking man, oh man, this Man United team has no history. I can't believe they've won 12 of the last 15 Prems under Sir Alex Ferguson. You know what I'm saying? Like people weren't saying that. It's just a new thing and people are just salty at the end
Yeah,
of the day.
it is
Like
it's a salty jealousy thing, and also social media. Just narratives are so much stronger nowadays, but that's
and it's really easy to drive a narrative, especially on the internet.
yeah,
But to touch on some other EPL matches, Wolves beat Burnley. Burnley's going down. I think Company should stay in because he did such a good job last year, but Wolves are gonna stay up.
it's crazy.
Yeah, and they don't really deserve to stay up in a sense.
No,
And then
probably.
Arsenal beat Luton, which is it wasn't a talking point, but it becomes a talking point because 7 goal thriller.
Yep.
Arsenal win late, and I see people getting mad about, oh, they're celebrating like they won the league. Like, dude, they just won a late game. Like, what are you gonna celebrate? Are you going to celebrate thrashing someone 7-0? Or are you going to celebrate winning a late game? It doesn't matter who it is. You're still going to be excited.
Yeah, you're a
Um,
human being for crying out loud.
and we want to see emotions, man. Like at the end of the day, like, like when these coaches don't get like, one of my favorite things under the Zidane 3P is when he got so excited, he literally ripped his pants. Like, we
Yeah.
love that. And like when Carlo gets like, he's so known. I mean, this is a dude that's been coaching for like 40 years, but he's just known to be like, that goal where like Everton like goes up 4-3 and he's just blowing on his coffee like after they like go up late and he's just not even excited. It's just like one of those things where at the end of the day, we like to see emotion and we want guys to be excited and happy. Do you have
Yeah.
any thoughts about that Arsenal Luton game? I didn't even see anything from it. I'm not gonna lie, but
I mean, I didn't see anything either. It's just the score line is obviously intriguing. They, conceding 3 goals to Luton. No disrespect to Luton, but you should not be conceding 3 goals to Luton. And I think there is some insight with Arsenal and City specifically. It's like these teams should not be conceding these goals. And I know that they're playing, like they're prone to counterattacks, and that's been the problem for those types of teams forever, especially down the wings, because they oftentimes only leave two center backs, maybe a DM to shield them. But yeah, it's interesting. And watching the Spurs game against Arsenal too, I like Saliba. He's a good defender, but I don't know. I think, you know, what's his face? Arteta Arteta stopped with Ramsdale this year and he went with the Spanish guy, blanking on his name,
Raya.
Raya. I think that's because he wanted a better goalie on the ball. But Ramsdale's a better shot stopper, and I think they're facing the consequences.
Advanced metrics, they're actually pretty equal in both distribution and shot stopping. So it's just I tested that. They're literally like I think Ramsdale is like a marginal better shot stopper, and then Raya is like a marginal better distribution on the
Yeah.
ball. But it also depends on what kind of passes you're playing and what kind of shots you're facing and your defensive structure. So like, it's really hard to compare what David Raya faced at Brentford, right?
Yeah.
He's on loan from Brentford, and what Ramsdale was facing at Arsenal. Because, I think the only fair metrics we could see was if we compared Arsenal this year to Ramsdale last year. But even then, this is a different Arsenal side. You know,
Total.
Arteta has just always been a carbon copy of Pep. And in that sense, I was talking to someone about this last night. It's just really intriguing how the 10 is coming back in football. And it's because of we're going from, went from Hugo de Possession to gegenpressing to now positional play. And in positional play, there's there's no positions essentially. It's just occupy this space. So you want to get as many of the best players on the pitch as possible. Zinchenko is essentially a deep 10,
Yeah.
and so you get him on the field. But you're going to suffer the consequences in transition, and that's where a team like Luton, a team like Aston Villa, a team like uh, Brentford, especially if they had Ivan Tooney, could really hurt you.
Yeah.
Um, and moving Brighton versus Brentford. You have any thoughts on that one? Obviously, it's a big game in my head, Brighton versus Brentford, because it's two
Yeah.
teams that constantly push above their weight. It's two teams that always are very tactical and they're trendsetters, in my opinion, in the game. And,
Definitely.
well deserved trendsetters.
Yeah. Well, I was watching the game only for a little bit. But just for the few minutes that I did, Pascal Gross is a baller. I'm not sure. No one knows what position he plays. He just plays wherever De Zerbi tells him to go, and he balls out. Um, he in the time that I watched, he wins the game for them. He scores a wonder goal, maybe not a wonder goal, but a very good goal outside the box with his left foot, which I'm pretty sure is his weak foot. And it's just a slick finish. The goalie has no shot, and he assists the second goal to win the game. Um, He also played a 40-yard pass just across the field, pinged it perfectly to a guy, Adingra, on the wing right outside the edge of the box. So, that's a hard pass to play considering the defense is going to be there because Brighton are up the field. It's not like they were breaking. They were in possession and he just, slots it 40 yards. I don't know. He's the
It is a weak foot, by the way. I looked it up.
yeah, so
It's a
Pascal
weak foot.
Gross is sort of like
Right
this.
footed.
He's like the I don't know, not the solution, but he's like the epitome of what makes De Zerbi so good is the flexibility. In this game, the wingbacks were coming inverted, but that doesn't happen all the time. He has Lamptey and Estupinian who are like, classic wingbacks who just hug the
Yeah.
touchline. So,
Old school.
right. And I don't know. I wrote it's a significant for me because if this guy were on a city, he would be doing the same thing and everyone would be singing his praises. But he's 32 years old and he's gonna win his first cap for Germany soon. It's crazy. I think it's an awesome story. Aside from even, if they went and lost, I still think it's awesome.
Well, and both these teams really, they just deserve to uh, be given all the praise for the recruitment in general.
Yeah,
I mean, they do a fantastic job. Um, and they make the coaches look much better than they are in both clubs.
true.
We saw Potter struggle, and I was never really a fan of Potter, but I enjoyed his Brighton, and De Zerbi really wasn't all that great at Shakhtar, and now he's at Brighton and he looks great in Brentford. Uh, their coach has been there for a while, I'm pretty sure, and
Yeah, Frank.
you know
He's like
they,
third most tenured coach in the Prem.
yeah, there you go. They don't fire him because he's on the same wavelength as the board, and
Yeah.
that's what they want. And so Brentford continues to punch above their weight, even without their one of the best strikers in the Prem, who literally gets England caps before the gambling scandal. But great team, two great teams that deserve to be talked about more than they actually do
Yeah, and the thing about them is like they're gonna get killed some games. They'll lose
because
to
of the way they play.
right. It's just it's so interesting. Neither of them will probably ever win the league. I don't want to say that for certain, but
Probably not.
chances are so slim and they're still awesome. I think I don't know, obviously they kind of get memed because of like football Twitter and football hipsters, but I don't know. The reality of it is those types of clubs are making the sport a lot more enjoyable, and that's a
I was
takeaway.
gonna say enjoyable is definitely the word to use for that one because like I we like the Vias to punch above their weight. We like, if you're not, as long as they're not beating your team, what do you care? Right? Like, you know, as long as they're not playing haram ball.
They're not.
Yeah, and okay, so talking about haram ball,
Go ahead.
Newcastle lose 3-0.
Yeah,
No, they don't really Newcastle don't play haram ball, but
it's
they
closer.
definitely played haram ball against Everton and they lose 3-0. Everton has been awesome since the sanctions. Like I've heard rumblings of like the squad is really using it as like motivation to just kick the crap out of teams. And I think have they lost since the sanctions? I don't really follow Everton too
I
often,
don't
but I
know.
don't think they have. Granted the sanctions are like 2 weeks old, but
Yeah.
still, I mean, beating Newcastle for Everton that's the big leagues, man. And
Mhm.
I I just don't think I don't think this Newcastle team is that good. I remember saying to you what Monday, I was like, hey man, you really guys said asked you what you thought about Everton. I was like, watch out for Everton, man. I was like,
Yeah.
they're much better than they play. Um,
Right.
and honestly, I think the EPL did them a solid with the sanctions.
Hmm.
It could have been much worse. They could have, added it to last season and gotten them relegated. Like, so, I think they would take that 10-point ban and the EPL did them solid because Everton is one of the teams that has never been relegated, from my understanding.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see them get relegated because,
Yeah.
they don't they're a class. Like I'm not an Everton fan. Um, even I prefer Liverpool over Everton, but I just I like I like the story. I should put it that way.
Yeah. And, you know, if the Merseyside Derby weren't in the Prem, that would suck. Um, but talking about since the sanctions, I believe they only have one loss.
Okay.
Outside of their last 8 games, they've only lost once, so they have been on fire.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're scoring goals for fun right now, and the squad is just like, what in the world even is this? Ducore is someone that has always just been under the radar. He's a fantastic defensive midfielder. Anyways, I Spurs have Newcastle this weekend, and both clubs are sort of in this wonky state of affairs. But when it comes to Spurs, which we don't have to touch on too much, it's just they lost another lead. They score early and they lose again. Um, I don't really want to break down the game. I did want to say this. I don't know if you saw it in the notes, but one of my friends from school called me after the game and was like, "It's time to fire Postacoglu." I was like,
Do I know
"What?"
this person?
No, no, you don't.
Oh, good. I would cut ties with
Yeah,
them completely.
you would not like them anyways. You would hate them. But I was like, "What are you talking about, man? What do you know what you're talking about right now?" And they don't, in all fairness. They're a Fulham fan who barely knows a whole lot. But I don't know, it was infuriating. Um if Daniel Levy's out there listening for whatever reason, do not sack Postacoglu. I don't care if we lose the next 10 games. All right, maybe that's a lie. But no, I think it is worth asking the question like, okay, how many losses in a row would Spurs need to fire Postacoglu? But I don't think it's now, not after 5 games, considering the injury crisis. Um, Not to mention West Ham got very lucky to score both those goals. The second one was a bit more of a Spurs fault, but nah, that was that was not good. Um,
Yeah, and I wouldn't fire Ange for anything.
yeah,
I like
no,
Ange. I mean, dude's been without Romero for 3 games. Romero comes back, and I do want to touch on Romero a little bit because he's been a big, big part of this success.
yeah, totally.
But I'm not mad about what happened for Spurs in that game. The Spurs team is missing a nine, their best nine in history, arguably the best English nine of all time. Beyond that, you have your best player playing out of position.
Yeah,
You have Brennan Johnson, who is young, Kulusevski, which, we know what he is.
yeah,
James Madison's out. Ever since James Madison's been out, they've struggled. Um, and now Basuma is trying to do more, which is why I believe he's been out of form because he's kind of felt like, okay, now I got to be the guy in midfield. So, he's trying to do it on the defensive end. He's trying to progress the ball more. Where James Madison, that was kind of his role in a big way.
yeah,
Um, and that Ben Davies at left center back is not ideal.
yeah.
Probably fourth choice center back, you'd think. Who is it? Eric Dyer can't even sniff a minute.
It's
And
bad.
all of that being said, I mean, I wouldn't let Eric Dyer sniff a minute either, but you know, um, I'm not blaming Ange for this. And honestly, I kind of like Ange for this. Like he hasn't backed down. Shit
Yeah,
hit the fan, and he's like, "Nah, we're still gonna play our way." And
yeah,
like, you can only do that at Spurs and get away with it. Like, there aren't many clubs that would be like if he tried that at Real Madrid, he'd be fired immediately. They'd be like, "No, like you have to win."
yeah,
Um, but I think that's for the betterment of the team. And, you know, the Chelsea one is definitely concerning in a way of like, dude, come on, we got 9 guys on the freaking pitch. Like,
yeah,
just get a point.
yeah,
That one was concerning to say the least. But all that being said, I'm not mad at Ange. I don't blame Ange for any of this. And yeah, that's
yeah.
all I gotta say. I would not fire him though, like at all.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say about it is if you look at the momentum bar for the game, it tells the whole story. Like the the amount of chances that Ange Ball is producing are they're good, and it's more so about finding attackers in form, and like you said, Johnson maturing, and Kulusevski needs to become a bit more selfish. Um, so we'll see. I think Spurs are.
And I want to say that like Spurs could have easily won that game like 3-4 nothing in the first like 20 minutes. Like you let West Ham stay in the game because you don't finish off your chances. I thought Son looked absolutely terrible, which was really the issue in the game. But again, I've been on record saying to you multiple times, you can't play Son as a striker without Madison, in my opinion. I would never do that.
Yeah, I'm slowly agreeing with that.
And you like what Son does at the nine, but like as an outsider looking in, it's just kind of like you need him on the left. And I'm not saying you get Richarlison up top because I don't think that's ideal either. I agree with Ange. Get your best 11 available on the field every single time, right? Like that's how I always coach. Like figure out get who are my top 11 guys right now that I have. All right, let's how do I fit these guys onto the field? Okay, if I can't fit him, how do I fit the top 12 guys onto the field, and so on and so forth. Um, and I think Andrew's doing that, and I don't have any complaints. And your friend should really he should listen to this podcast because he could use some ball knowledge to
Yeah.
understand that I'm very curious as to what club he supports, because if it's not Real Madrid, then he really shouldn't be so quick to fire a manager, because that's the only club that really, or maybe he's a Chelsea. He's got to be a Chelsea fan. He has to
Fulham,
be a Chelsea fan.
Fulham.
Okay, yeah, this guy just go rot in the third division one year, please, and let me know how quick you want to fire a manager. But I wouldn't sack Ange. I would ride Ange for at least 3 seasons. Like, just
I would.
like I think season two is going to be the peak.
Yeah.
Um, Usually coaches have three years. As you see with Pep, he kind of tries to change every year so that that's how he elongates the 3 years. But we saw with Klopp, he had like a 4 year reign of like perfection with his guys, and it was really like a 2 year reign. But
Yeah.
I'm counting like the beginning when like they struggled, and then they had like 2 off years where he's like, man, I really got to reinvent this squad because I'm not going to change the squad tactically. And now they're back to where they were before with a completely different squad, except for like three guys. Because Robertson's not really playing. And the only guys you really still have are Alisson, VVD, Trent, and Mo. Really is it. Um, and he's had to reinvent that team. Um, and I don't even who did they play midweek? I don't even know. That didn't even take precedent in my mind. They must have won like 2 or 3 nothing.
That's an interesting question. I
They played Sheffield. They won 2-0. I know because I remember seeing it. It just didn't register with me. Which is really sad. They should have beat Sheffield a lot worse than that, in my opinion. Um,
I mean, looking at the momentum bar,
it could have been more.
yeah.
Okay, at least that's fair. I thought Gakpo started too, and I don't. This isn't. I don't want to get into Liverpool talk, but they spent the money in the wrong places, in my opinion. Another team that probably should have been in on Rice after they lost on Chouameni and probably had more pull than Chelsea in that situation. Like they could rival Arsenal, unless unless Declan Rice is like, I'm an Arsenal fan, I want to go to Arsenal. That's the only way I see that happening. Um, I would rather play for Klopp at Liverpool than Arteta at Arsenal, but that's just my personal preference. I'm also a Klopp fan as a coach, not so much as a person sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, but any other talk about the Prem that you want to touch on?
No, I mean, other than this midweek set up the weekend interesting. If, Spurs have a chance to bounce back against Newcastle, Newcastle have a chance.
Newcastle just got waxed,
Yeah. So we'll see. That's on
and I
Sunday.
think it's at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is what they call it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
And then Aston Villa's got another chance to prove themselves against Arsenal. So
at
what
Via Park,
yeah,
I'm tuning in for sure.
yeah.
I need to see. I need to see some Emery ball. You want to talk about Haram ball? That's what they do. But they
Dude,
looked really good against City anyway. Like it wasn't Haram ball against City, but when they start getting dominated, they like tuck in, like a turtle, like into their shell. And God, it's hard to watch when they get dominated. Moving on to so England was the only one that played league games this week. Everyone else had cup games. Um, so I I follow La Liga, so I followed Copa del Rey.
yeah,
I'm guessing you probably didn't follow it too precisely.
not too
So
much
I
now.
can just I can just go quick hitter here.
Oh,
Almeria gets eliminated by a third division side. Actually, I think it's a fourth division side because you have La Liga 1, La Liga 2, Segunda, and then Tercera. So they get eliminated by Tercera side, Barbastro, and their struggles continue. They're clearly going to get relegated. Cadiz also eliminated in the round of 32, I want to say, or it was around a six. It's around a 64, which it's a single elimination game. The four teams in the Spanish Super Cup do not need to participate. Real Madrid because they won the Copa del Rey. Osasuna doesn't need to participate because they got second in the Copa del Rey. Barcelona because they won the league, and then Atletico got third in the league, but because Real Madrid were already in and they got second in the league, Atletico gets the next spot. So those are the four teams that do not need to participate until the round of 16, which is really nice. And actually, I want to send you this video about the pitch that Cadiz had to play on and they lost. But other than that, Villarreal advance, Getafe advance, Espanyol advance, Valencia advance, Rayo Vallecano, Real Sociedad, Sevilla, Mallorca, Malaga, and Malaga is not a first division side, but a little bit before your time, they were a UCL semifinalist in
yeah,
the early 2010s. So, they're in the third division in Spain right now. So it's nice to see them like doing something. An athletic club, they'll advance. They transitioned to one-legged ties some years ago, like 2 or 3 years ago, and it's been much better for the tournament because like it was always like Barcelona, Real Madrid, and uh Atletico winning. But now you have Osasuna making the final because of one-legged ties, and all they got to do is beat you one time. And they're at home is usually how it goes. That's kind of the shitty part about it. Um, Let me just pull up my Twitter and I'll send you that video right now. But it's kind of cool how they do it like that, how you go and play in these stadiums and you got to win in these stadiums, man. It's kind of incredible when you think about it because these pitches are definitely not what you want them to be. Let's put it that way.
yeah.
Um, there's an account. There's a La Liga Extra. It's a great account on nice guy too. I've talked to him multiple times. He does a great job with promoting La Liga, which is there aren't a lot of people that out there that do promote La Liga, which is actually kind of nice.
Yeah.
I shared it to myself, so I have it right here. He posted it 3 hours ago. Copy link. There's a chat here, right, that I can send it to.
Yeah, there should be.
Oh, or I can just share my screen.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, here we go. All right. Can you see this? Are you
Uh,
watching this? Look at that. Oh,
yeah,
you're not
yeah.
seeing it yet. Isn't that like, look how bad this is, right?
That's terrible.
Why is that allowed? Why is that allowed in a competition? I know it's nice, but why is that allowed? That shouldn't be allowed. Um,
That's wild.
yeah, and it's not really something that should be accepted. Let's just put it that way. Um,
That looks like a, non-league English football.
Sunday game. Yeah, it looks like a Sunday league game that you and I would get to participate in.
Yeah,
Um, so that being said, it's pretty embarrassing.
yeah.
And then, moving to Germany, which uh
I did
is
follow
really
the.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Bayern's already eliminated.
Yep.
So that's wonderful. Dortmund gets eliminated by Stuttgart as Guirassy finally comes back. I think he made his return on the weekend and he scores a big goal for them. Um, and Dortmund actually fielded a pretty strong team when you look at it. Um,
Yeah.
they just kind of lacked firepower up front. And this Dortmund team's really weird. I'm not a fan of
It is.
them.
It
I
is
don't
weird.
think they're very good. I don't think they're very good. I know they're top of their UCL group, but I don't think they're very good. I don't know about you, what you think about them, but
Well, yeah, they have heading into the season. I thought they were pretty good, and our UCL predictions. I did think that they were going to advance. I think it's more so a product of the rest of those teams being relatively dysfunctional. Like PSG, you know, it's
yeah,
just like them to lose that group. And then Newcastle first chance at the UCL.
very dysfunctional.
And then Milan has a few
And
kinks to work out.
tons of injury woes for AC Milan. It's incredible for a team that should be winning that group pretty easily. He's actually finding themselves in fourth place. Um, in
Yeah,
my
no,
opinion, should be easy winning that group pretty easily because they were semifinalists last year and they didn't really lose anybody. I don't think they lost anybody actually.
no, if anything,
Um,
they're strengthened.
Yeah. Um, and then beyond that, Frankfurt loses again. They've only won 1 from 5. They get a red card and lose to third division side Saarbrücken. Um,
Yeah.
so another big team.
Yeah.
Eintracht Frankfurt is a big club in Germany. And then Wolfsburg and Mönchengladbach actually they ended up getting drawn against each other, and Mönchengladbach luckily got home field advantage, and they win in the 120th minute as a header as the dude lacks at the back post. I believe it was like Kone scores the winner after Neuhaus just beat his man to the byline and just sends a little soft cross. And actually, Vind missed a header for Wolfsburg in the 90th minute with a fantastic save. So, all
I'm
that
a
being said, actually, I thought Wolfsburg was the better team.
fair. I'm a big
And they don't have any XG for these games, so we can't actually like see anything. But I'm sure they'll start getting them when they get into the later rounds.
right. I mean, the thing for me is I'm a big fan of Kone in terms of like a dynamic midfielder. An
Hmm.
eight. I think he'll be playing for a Champions League team soon. Keep
Really,
your
you're that high on them?
keep your eyes peeled.
Interesting. I will keep my eyes peeled then.
He he's another French guy. I don't know how France is
Always.
turning these many, you know, these many players out. His stats this year aren't the greatest. He only has a goal, but that's not really his job.
It's
He's
not his job.
he's gonna win the ball back. He's gonna offload it to someone who can progress the ball through passing, or he's gonna carry it. 22 worth about 40 million market val. Um, keep your eyes peeled. I could
Solid.
see him going to Liverpool. He is like a B Tech many.
I like
Anyways,
that comp. I like
yeah,
that comp. The comp to Liverpool, that is. I don't know about the Chouameni parks. I haven't watched enough of them. When I watch Bundesliga, as we can, this will be my transition. I watch my guy Xabi Alonso mostly, who, in
yeah,
my opinion, should now be clear favorites to win this.
definitely.
It's they win 3-1. Boniface, Schick, and Palacios scored double assists from Frimpong. Schick is coming off the bench. Think about that. Patrick Schick
Yeah,
is coming off the bench. I'll repeat, Patrick Schick coming off the bench. That shows how deep this team is. That shows how fantastic they are, how great of a job that the sporting director and Xabi Alonso have done hand in hand. They go get Grimaldo on a free this summer. Free. Grimaldo and Frimpong actually lead their team in goals and assists. Um,
crazy.
Frimpong, they're both menaces. Grimaldo, they have tuck in and play as kind of like a 10 in that half space. And then Frimpong keeps his width and drives the byline and looks for cutbacks. So great team to watch. If anyone loves good, expansive football and they want to watch a chameleon in attack and defense, someone that can change, Bayer Leverkusen Chabi is your squad to watch this year. I've watched probably about 20, 30 games of them, and they're exciting. They're great. Florian Wirtz is amazing. Boniface is dynamic up front. Um, Schick coming off the bench. Uh, Jonas Hoffman. I mean, what a guy. I don't know where he was before, but huge fan of his. He came out of nowhere onto my radar. I'm sure he wasn't on a lot of people's radars. He just wasn't on mine.
Yeah,
Um, and Frimpong has been on my radar for 2 seasons now, and he's got a $40 million release clause this summer, or euro, 40 million euro release clause this summer, and he is worth about 80 in my head as a outside back. And any top squad that needs a right back should throw 40 at him and let him decide because he's that good.
definitely.
I think he should probably sign a new deal, if my guess, because based on my sources in my head, which are not actually sources, I think Xabi Alonso stays another year.
Hmm,
Just from the information I've done, or the research I've done, I think he's leaning and staying another season. Um, because Florian Wirtz, by reasoning, is Florian Wirtz said he's staying this season, next season, and the only reason for Florian Wirtz to stay because he's a top talent along with Musiala, uh, Bellingham, and Pedri as the best tens in the world, in my opinion, young tens especially.
yeah,
Um, he's as good as those guys, and if he's saying he wants to stay, there's probably a reason going on in the background of why this guy wants to stay another season.
yeah. I could see that. Um, I just found out Frimpong is from Manchester City's academy. Did you know that?
Wow, I did not. It doesn't make me like him any less, but I'm not surprised. I've had a Man United friend tell me that Man City's academy is shit, and I've told him really because Sancho, Foden, and Raheem Diaz all came out of the same graduating class. So, let's do the math on that one.
Yeah,
Brahim Diaz is awesome, played for AC Milan as a starter, and now backing up at Real Madrid. Jude Bellingham, backing up Jude. It's not like he's backing up some bum,
yeah,
backing up Jude Bellingham. Um, Foden is like the 12th man at Man City, and Jadon Sancho was one of the best players in the Bundesliga when he was with Dortmund and is flopping at United, but I don't necessarily know if that's his fault, so to speak.
yeah. I don't think so. I don't think so. But yeah, their academy is not shit. They have Frimpong as well, and
Yeah, another one to add to the list of people I can
oh,
bring up.
there are others. I can find it real quick.
Cole Palmer,
Cole
another
Palmer,
one.
exactly. Yeah,
He went for 45. I know I'm not a fan, but I think 45 is a fair price for Cole Palmer. Let's just put it
yeah.
that way.
Romeo Lavia as well. He's still
Baller, huge
yeah.
fan.
They Michael Olise is another one that I did not
Oh,
know.
nice. I did not know he was from there. Oh, wow. Okay, they cook.
Yeah, they
Are
do.
they the new Southampton? Are they the new Southampton? Is that
I
what, is
think
that what we're
so.
going to start saying? Um,
So they have another. There's a guy who left their academy, Carlos Borges. That's more of a niche one, but he's playing for Ajax right now, Portuguese right winger.
good for him.
Um, he he's one to watch. He'll have a huge transfer soon. Talking about transfers, I didn't really. This seems to be more your territory because they're Spanish guys, but
Yeah,
Brian Zaragoza to Bayern is a huge deal.
huge deal. And it's a weird deal for me.
Yeah, it is weird.
It doesn't make
Bayern,
a lot of sense for me.
I think Bayern like to sign some of these guys that are very low risk. If he doesn't perform well, it's not like they spent a whole
It's a
bunch of
cheap
money.
transfer too. Yeah.
Yeah, but
And something that the reason it really sticks out to me is that they're keeping him at Granada for the rest of the year. He's actually been probably the best left winger in La Liga this season. But the reason it's weird to me is maybe they're doing it as to cover for the potential Leroy Sané saga that will probably ensue this summer. And they're gonna have to make a decision on if they're gonna sell. But they have an abundance of wingers there, an abundance of good wingers, and so it doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. You have Gnabry, you have Coman, you have Sane. You also, and let's not just talk about them, because we can just talk about the attack in general because you can't play too many attackers. So Coman, Sane, Gnabry, Musiala, Kane, Mueller.
and
You have
Mathis.
seven guys. Yes, thank you. Forgot about him. God. You would remember him because that's your guy. And that's what's crazy is that Tell is that good and he still gets lost in the bunch.
Yeah,
I don't see Zaragoza. I don't see him thriving there. I see it as security. He's a really good player. His advanced metrics are really good. He's been one of the best players in La Liga this season. And it's really smart for these teams to pick up these guys early. And this is a Bayern thing. This is what Bayern does. They get it done early. They get it done cheap before the other teams start sniffing around. They have a fantastic recruiting department, much like Real Madrid. It's why they're so good and why they stay in the elite of the elite conversations because they get deals like this done.
yeah.
The one question I will say is it a Mark Roca 2.0, which is someone they brought in from La Liga, who was one of the best DMs when they brought him in La Liga. He went to Bayern. He never played again. Um,
It's
Now
crazy.
he's playing his trade back in La Liga as a backup. I want to say he's at Sociedad, but don't quote me on that. It might be Betis. I forget. But he's at a mid-table La Liga squad and he's still not playing. Probably because he's lost his form. And then also, Juan Miranda goes to AC Milan from Real Betis as they continue to lose players, especially in their back line. And you got to feel for Pellegrini in that sense because he's a class manager. He had a class squad, and this was a squad I had finishing really high until I looked at their squad before the season. I was like, holy shit, they've just been picked apart. You know who they just signed on a free, bro? Socrates. Socrates signed on a free for Real Betis. He's one of their starting center backs now. They've had a ton of injuries. Um, and they also have keep your eye out for this kid, Luis Enrique. Henrique, not Enrique. They
Yeah,
pronounce it Enrique in Spain because the H is silent, but he's Brazilian right winger. Very good, great left foot. Everyone keep your eye out on him. He's a fantastic baller. And that's just it's Usually at this time of year, we're not talking about transfers, but uh, AC Milan and Bayern, that's why they're big clubs, man. They get shit done and
Yeah.
they go and get players that they're smart with their deals. And it's real easy in La Liga because you can just pay a release clause and they're yours if they want to go.
Yeah.
Um, because La Liga requires teams, every contract has to have a release clause. Part
Yeah.
of the La Liga bylaws. And so, I'm sure 15 mil was Zaragoza's release clause. And Juan Miranda moves to AC Milan for like 2 million. So I'm
Saw the
sure he's going to be a
rookie.
backup left back for them.
Yeah.
But
Is
he had
he?
1 year left on his deal, so they're happy to see him go.
Yeah. He's from Barca's academy, right?
Yes. And
Yeah.
Barca receives like 800 of that 2 million. So,
They need that cash for sure.
well, Betis need it just as bad too. So that's the bad part about it. And La Liga clubs continue to struggle in the transfer market, but they still continue to punch above their weight in Europe. So,
Yeah,
even
definitely.
Sevilla, who has been absolute garbage and got gypped in the Champions League, um, probably deserve to go through in their group. Honestly, from what I've seen, they were the better team in most of their games. So it's unfortunate, but that's just the way the cookies crumbled this year. Any
Yeah.
other talking points from you?
Not necessarily. It was a busy you know, Wednesday, Thursday, some stuff going on today. Um, like I said earlier, it sets up the weekend very well. Which we will obviously cover. Let's see. I just want to. Oh, Juve did take the lead. It looks like a close game though.
I'm not
It's
surprised.
yeah. I guess that is one thing
It
I would.
was. It was a little back and forth from what I saw.
Yeah, that is one thing. It's like talking about a team like Betis, a team like Santos, a team like Juventus now. I'm just wondering about, not to drag this on, but I'm wondering like, are we really starting to see the effects of COVID on these clubs now when it comes to their finances? I don't know, because something like that, obviously, you know better than me, but something like that it's a delayed reaction, you know? Um,
It's a slow burn,
yeah,
unfortunately.
just something to think about as, I don't want to see a lot of these teams disappear. Not that Juve would disappear, but Santos get relegated, Real Betis need money. And it's not like Juventus
Barca
has
need money.
yeah, it's not like Juventus has a world-class squad anymore. I
Except for like Chiesa and Vlahovic, that's really it. I mean,
right,
Rabiot. I mean, they have good players. That's what's kind of kept them afloat.
right. I feel like when I was younger, I would see them in the transfer bids with a guy like Florian Wirtz. If he
Yeah.
were in Italy, I would have seen them in for those guys back in the day.
Florian
Um,
Wirtz at Juve right now would be actually be exciting. I would be a huge fan of that.
but you know what I mean? Like Juve wouldn't sign Florian Wirtz. If anything, like a Europa League team in the Prem would before Juve would these days.
Yeah, it's really sad actually the way that football's kind of gone in that direction right now. And I do think it was a mix of COVID plus, the EPL money has just been there. And then a bunch of financial mismanagement from these clubs during COVID was really the problem. They were trying to stay afloat. If you look at Real Madrid's squad, we didn't really do a lot during COVID. We kind of just stayed put. Didn't even really move anybody ourselves. We sold Hakimi to Inter, but which was a big money move and one some Madridistas regret, but at the end of the day, you have to do what you have to do to stay afloat. And this is kind of why Barcelona's in this situation. They spent 50 mil for one season of Lewandowski to win one league title. Does that justify it? Because Lewandowski's in the worst form of his career.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
even the squad like Barcelona and even Atletico, like they've done a good job, honestly, post COVID. I think they've sold a lot of the fat. They cut a lot of the fat off their squad, and they've done it. They've done it cheap. They've brought up academy players. They've loaned out academy players. Like Lino is very good. Riquelme is really good. Brought Sold Griezmann for 120, bought him back for 20. That's a plus 100, and you get the player back. And
yeah,
Griezmann's arguably one of the best players in the world still. Um, Morata's, hopped around a lot, but he's been real good for them, cheap. Marcus Llorente has been awesome. they wanted to move Saul, who, they should have sold to United a very long time ago when United put in like an 80 million bid for him, but they didn't. Um, and they just they grabbed the Leicester center back.
Oh,
I
Yonchu?
don't even. Yeah, uh, he's not even playing for them. They got Axel Witsel,
That's
so they
weird.
have like they have really good. They have a good squad on paper. On paper, like really good squad. Mario Hermoso, Jose Ma, they're class, man, and you know they're gonna punch above their weight this year, as they always do. But that's Atletico, man. It's just like that Aston Villa talk we had. Like they're
Yeah.
best when they're underdogs. They're best when they're punching above their weight. They were favorites by many against Barca, and they got absolutely waxed. Um, so
Yeah. There's a lot of exciting stuff on the forefront, even among the bleakness with things like Santos. So yeah, there's some tasty fixtures this weekend. Juve Napoli's on right now, Atlanta Milan, Roma Fiorentina. That's just Italy. We obviously talked about some of the Prem. Um, exciting Bundesliga and La Liga games as well. Barca Girona,
Girona, Barca, yeah, top of the league clash.
that's the one that pops out for sure. Dortmund
That
like
is the one that pops out this weekend from all games, I think.
yeah, I think
I think Barcelona will probably come away with 3 points. You have to hope for their sake. Um, but Girona aren't someone to be messed with, in my opinion. They're solid. Real Madrid beat them 3-0, but it really wasn't a comfortable 3-0.
yeah, I see what you mean. But yeah, that concludes episode one. Unless you had something you wanted to say.
No, I'm good. I
All right.
I I was it was a good discussion, and I
Yeah,
look forward to continuing this.
absolutely. All right, people. Peace.